Stopping advanced threats requires knowing exactly what you're up against. ExtraHop Reveal X is the only solution that shows you not just where intruders are going, but where they've been. 90-day look-back and complete network visibility across the data center, cloud, and device edge helps security teams respond 84% faster with ExtraHop Reveal X network detection and response. Explore the interactive demo at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. Welcome back, everyone, to Business Security Weekly. If you want to stay in tune with all podcasts on the Security Weekly network, that's right. We've got Application Security Weekly. If you want the latest in web app sec, we've got Security and Compliance Weekly for our compliance folks out there. All are fun and entertaining. You can subscribe to all of them, as well as some new series that we're announcing. So make sure you check securityweekly.com/subscribe. You can subscribe to all of the podcasts on the network, our YouTube channel, our mailing list, and join our Discord server. If you missed Security Weekly Unlocked, you can access all of the content on demand, whether you registered before or not, by visiting securityweekly.com/unlocked. You can unlock the registration, I guess. There's a lot of great talks. You should check them out. Now, on to the news for this week. How do you think you win the cybersecurity contest? Is there a contest? Like, does that mean there's a prize? Like, a contest implies that there's a prize at the end. Like, where are our prizes for the cybersecurity? There's an end. I guess it's just fulfilling enough that we're doing the good for humanity.
We get participation trophies.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about treating it like a contest. I don't know about this.
Mm-hmm. Now, the advice is not bad. I do have to say. They talk about priority.
I mean, they go through some of the basic cyber hygiene pieces that we always talk about, right? I mean, prioritize, know your assets, and know what's important.
Okay.
Sure.
Next article.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the better analogy is like stranded in the ocean and like not drowning or starving or getting eaten by sharks. I think that's
the hard part with prioritization. It sounds great if you've got a few things to prioritize. When you start delving into cybersecurity,
absolutely,
things get, and the larger the organization gets, the more things you have to prioritize.
And then throw our last topic in there, medical devices.
Yeah.
Right? Throw that whole right. That whole.
Well, that was like my question. Like, do you prioritize the monitoring? Because if everyone always thinks, my blood pressure's off, my heart rate is off, that can be bad, but also really bad if my infusion pump is basically, we're talking about the integrity of these devices in function and in the reporting of what data they're spitting out. But then there's also the medical imaging. So I kind of classified them into three, just thinking off the top of my head. And like, do we treat these differently? I think Christopher's answer was right in terms of prioritization. It's like, well, no, they're all like interconnected on the same network, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually checking out a conversation in another group that I'm in where they're talking a lot about how the CISOs are kind of the caregivers, and caretakers of trust, both within the company and to customers outside the company. And I kind of liked that idea of the role of a CISO. Like whether or not you can trust the integrity of your devices or whatever it is, your financial books, securing that to where you can trust it.
Yeah, because I mean, it is data, but there's also a huge part of function, especially when we talk about industrial control systems or medical devices. Especially, we have to trust that they are functioning and not in the wrong hands. Data is a different aspect of that. I mean, but also important.
A few years ago, we were talking about, on Twitter, I remember having this conversation with Jeremiah Grossman and a few other people. We were talking about, what's next for ransomware after encrypting files? Like, what if we solve that problem? What could they move to next? And one of the ideas was, what if they came in and just kind of low and slow started cooking your books until, tax time rolls around, they know you're going to have your financial audits and they're like, yeah, there's no way you're going to pass this without our help to put the numbers back to the way they were. Only we know how it's all been changed.
Yeah, encryption is a brute force, very visible attempt. It is kind of scary to think. Yeah, it is, I think, important to look ahead into the future about what we might be up against.
Yeah, we just made you look like Enron. When those auditors come in.
Right.
That's interesting. 5 reasons why cybersecurity should be a priority, speaking of priority, while planning your business. And I think this really resonated with me and I'm sure this is the article that really was like Jason could have written it. The cybersecurity in your business can involve more clients, form sustainable, loyal client base, build the nice reputation, save money on PR. Jason, I think this highlights the theme.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's the end product of having security embedded in the business, right? I mean, number one, we're making sure, and I'll just take our company for example. We have 6,000 customers, right? We're a managed service provider and a professional services organization, and trust is the key factor for organizations to want to do business with us these days. So we have to be collaborating with them. We have to have executive level sessions where I'm involved in those conversations, because we need to be leading the charge to make sure our customers are safe and make sure that our connections and our support is not exposing them to undue risk. So we have to have that leading edge conversation so we're not put back on our heels, right? And ultimately what that does is it builds a very strong business relationship, which is great because, again, shared responsibility. We're business partners, not transactional organizations, right? So we have to have that level of partnership.
One of the things that really struck me here is save money in the new PR company, because I was thinking, not even just in security, anytime you have an unplanned event, you want to take a trip at the last minute, you're scheduling a hotel, airfare, everything at the last minute, it costs you more. Having an IR firm come out tomorrow is going to be much more expensive than, if you were able to negotiate and schedule it, which is, of course, not how IR works, in breach events and things like that. So really what you're trying to do here is smooth that out and avoid unplanned events, because all unplanned events are disruptive and expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And I would argue you could pull that out and not just focus that on PR company or IR. Having that level of a relationship is going to save money from operational efficiencies no matter what, because you're having strategic, proactive conversations. And during those conversations, you're eliminating any type of process failures, any type of process inefficiencies, technology inefficiencies. It's just the nature of the beast of being strategic. You're going to save money from operational efficiencies.
And planning.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that was a DevOps lesson, unplanned work, right? It applies all the way up to, we've had this huge event, right? SASE. You guys into SASE? You like the SASE?
SASE's cool.
SASE's cool.
For the cool kids.
It looks, this looked like an article from a provider perhaps of SASE technologies. And I don't blame them. This is hard to be in when you're in this like newer space, especially SASE. It includes a lot of the edge computing as well as SD-WAN kind of together, but it often breeds kind of misconceptions. And when I look at remote access and how to control both the network portion and user roles and privileges, so it should have a tie into identity. It's a tough thing to wrap your brain around, and you can get a lot of misconceptions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue it's not misinformation that's been put out there. It's the misunderstanding of what it actually is.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're looking at an architecture that, number one, is identity driven and identity aware. You need to have global reach and dispersed geography throughout the entire world. And you have to be based the foundation on cloud delivery, right? I mean, you have to be internet based. That's literally Gartner's definition of it. And you start looking at companies that are out there, they're integrating everything into the SASE architecture, from SD-WAN to their secure web gateways to CASB to their firewalls, right? I mean, there's some native companies and there's some companies who've had to gone from a product on-prem type scenario and kind of move their strategy.
And this is the constant challenge of security is because we're constantly building and consolidating new things. SASE, there's nothing new under SASE. The only thing that's new about SASE is that a bunch of things have been consolidated.
Yeah.
And given
consolidated and integrated,
one new
right?
name.
Yeah.
Customers are constantly having to learn, okay, what is this new thing? And they're going to get wrong information. from some people, at some point along the process, and it's going to trip things up.
Cloudflare is now calling it Magic WAN. Magic WAN allows organizations to connect their branch offices, data centers, cloud assets, and remote workers to its global network.
Magic WAN and Magic Firewall.
Using its SD-WAN technology, but that's what they're describing is also SASE.
Yes. And that's the other problem here is like, vendors, I know you want to be special and unique and differentiated, but when you go out making up new terms and throwing them out there, like it just makes it so much worse for the rest of us who have to explain this stuff.
I mean, at the end of the day, security leaders like myself and a lot of our customers, because there's been so many unicorns out there in the industry, this is why SASE is starting to exist, because we're trying to take all of these unicorns and blow them out and say, I just need one ecosystem that I can manage, right? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, they're just starting to throw out more unicorns, making it more complex to navigate the product line in security these days.
Yeah, in this category in particular is the reason I wanted to bring it up today was to provide some color and commentary around it because it's difficult to navigate. I haven't fully wrapped my brain around it. I'm sure in our schedule, Adrian, we're going to look at it at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those areas where there's actually another great podcast that I listened to that's entirely focused on SASE in their first 2 seasons, and even after listening to 3 or 4 of those, I still wasn't completely sure that I grokked what it was.
Interesting.
But it incorporates zero trust, and zero trust is already a buzzword that's exploded to the point to where it's difficult to understand what it does. Like I remember in one day, somebody pitched both encryption and an endpoint security agent as zero trust to me, and it's zero trust already started out as a concept, but there's also specific technologies labeled zero trust. Like within SASE, you have ZTNA, which is zero trust network access, which is a specific component that you need to make zero trust the philosophy or framework work. Mm-hmm. But now people are just using it as just like we would have in the past used least privilege.
Yeah.
As a concept that you could apply to anything.
That's what I really like about there's like an alphabet soup, right, that we just talked about. But essentially, one of the things that I believe it can accomplish is, let's say I'm an employee and I'm traveling and I'm at a family member's house. I want to check my email. The ecosystem knows that I'm trying to access something from like a brand new device. And even though I may authenticate and perhaps how much I want to go through to prove who I am, I get a certain level of access within the network. And that's what they'll label as zero trust, and they'll use the terms like SD-WAN and edge access and all that stuff. But I want the CISOs of the world to start, understanding this so they can start applying this, because I think there's merit here. Because if I were a CISO and then looking back on my career, I'm like, I want to treat that person differently based on the device, based on what they're accessing. And I don't want to say no. I want to give them, I want to say if you're at your family member's house, you need to check your email. Yes, check your email. But you're not going to be able to maybe access your email archive. Maybe you're limited as to who you can send to. You're limited to what else you can access. I like that model a lot.
Yeah, 100%.
3 is, I don't know, what is it with this show and pulling articles? They're all lists. Like I think
listicles?
They're listicle.
That's not you.
Like
that's everyone else.
Article focused on like senior cybersecurity leadership as a giant bucket. Like there's a lot of lists. Man, like
that's what you have to do to draw those readers.
And they're odd numbered lists always,
they're
right?
all
3 ways, 5 ways, 7 ways.
Yep.
7 is a big one. Yeah. That's
a long list. I don't know. You might want to break it up into 3 and then 3 and like just get rid of 1. So you have 2 3s, because a 5 and a 3, then it's anyway. So they focus 70-80% of their time on each day on their main income stream. And I want that aside, when you look at prioritize and execute, I think you do need to figure out like, okay, what are my main goals, high level main goals? How do I structure my time? So I'm spending the larger percentage of my time on those goals, and then kind of carve everything else out to like the stuff that I do have to get done, maybe to support those, major goals. So I think if you kind of make this your own and don't follow it word for word, I think it's a good reminder of like how to prioritize, right?
100%. I mean, that's exactly why with my teams, I make sure we're carving out what we call innovation time, right? That innovation time is to play and tinker and look at new technologies. And unless you force feed that into your calendar, you're going to fall victim to the whirlwind of the 1,000-mile-an-hour day, right? And you're never going to be able to lift your head out of the sand. So, leaders in the space have to really think about their teams and make sure that you're pushing to have that level of time in your team's calendar. Because in many instances, your staff may not be thinking that way. They may be thinking, I just got to get stuff done. I got to get it done. I got to get my job done. Right?
We were in that boat, and we're slowly starting to, we're getting a bigger boat, I guess, essentially, right? Because you need more resources to have more innovation time, but
gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want your entire, this was happening, the entire staff, every single day, 5 days a week we're just getting by doing the operational stuff. And I'm like, well, this is bad for so many reasons because we're incurring technical debt. We're not innovating and moving forward. I'm like, but we can't just forget about all the operational things. I think that's why this article resonated with me because, Monday, Tuesday here in the studio, we're hyper focused on operations because we have to be, because there's 4 shows across 2 days, right? But then I make sure that we've got some well-defined projects, which has been one of my goals, especially for this year, and that we're breaking out smaller tasks from there. I'm like, so this week, and we got a lot of stuff going on, but when you got your 70-80% operations, make sure you're spending your 20-30% time on these new projects, right? And I'll take the burden of doing a lot of the research right now, and then as the team grows, they'll be doing their own research. And I think that's a really healthy way for not just your employees, first and foremost, but also for your tech stack, for your business, to make sure you're not stale, to make sure that you're updating systems and replacing gear before it goes bad, right? That's 100%. Huge.
Yeah, there's a great book, and I think I've mentioned it here in the past. It's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's a Franklin Covey book. It was written by Chris McChesney and Sean Covey. Sorry, and it gives you a really good roadmap on how you can start infusing productive time, innovative time into your calendar. Because ultimately, they realize that folks are too often caught in the whirlwind of the day-to-day, of the run, to keep the lights on. That this structure, like I said, it's a really, really good structure on how you can start infusing that focus time, that innovation time, the get things done time, right? And the reason why I love the book is because that feeling when you say, I did a whole hell of a lot, but I feel like I accomplished nothing.
Yes.
Right. And in so many instances, it started to become a daily mantra for me, where it's like, I did a crap ton of stuff, but I accomplished nothing. So ultimately, as a leadership team, we kind of focused on, let's get this books in the hands of all of our leaders and really read through it. And it force fed that structure and that discipline into our organization to make sure we're not just in the run, where we're putting time towards growth of our company and transformation of our company. Because being in the mindset of keep the lights on day to day, you're never going to grow your organization. You're never going to get to that transformative type structure that you really want, that you thrive for as a leader.
And there's tactical stuff that you can do to enable this as well. Like actually blocking out time on your calendar for certain personal things that you want to accomplish. And I'm kind of a productivity geek out of necessity on a lot of this stuff. So I've tried a lot of these suggestions. I've read a lot of these books, and one of them for me is not looking at the whole to-do list of everything you want to do, but just focusing on the one goal that you want to get done today. That'll make you feel like, hey, a lot of shit happened today, but at least I got that one thing on my list checked off that I most wanted to get done. And you can't do it if there's 3 things on that list or even 5 things on that list. And of course, I've got ADHD. It totally depends on your work style. So there's not one approach to this that works for everyone. But it's a lot of it is around time and how you schedule out your calendar and how you use your time. It's the reason shower thoughts are a thing. And you can buy pencil and paper, to suction cup in the shower. Is because for some people, that's the only time they actually let their brain rest, and they're not in a meeting. They're not watching a YouTube video. They're not listening to a podcast, their brain finally has a chance to process all that junk that they've taken in.
No,
and those ideas start coming out.
I like that because I think that, you often will label yourself, at least me, as a procrastinator or easily overwhelmed. And I think those are things that, using a lot of the techniques that we talk about on the show, some ones you both just mentioned, are super important and critical, because everyone, no matter of their level of ADHD 0 to 100, you get overwhelmed and you tend to procrastinate things at certain times. And I think it's learning the tools and skills to be able to overcome those, because you're right. I'm looking at a huge long, anyone's going to get overwhelmed if their task list has got 30 things on it, right?
Yeah. And one important caveat I want to throw in there is, you can block the time off all you want, but if you're not protecting that time with your life, you're going to fail. Because if you allow that time to get double booked, triple booked, you're going to fail, right? So ultimately, and that came out of the 4 disciplines of execution, protect that time with your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can't be wishy-washy about it.
One area
which is, again, tough depending on your personality type.
Yes.
Because, if you're the type of person that hates to say no to people.
That's right.
One area that I think you can become overwhelmed, especially as a CISO, is understanding things about passwords and authentication, which, whether you're protecting the IT side of the house or some application or suite of applications, and you're in charge of the development, or you've just got Office, 360, 365 hanging out there, you get really overwhelmed with, do I need passwordless? And what are my passwordless options? I need some kind of multi-factor. Should it be a token? Should it be a phone? How is it different between the applications? How do users reset their passwords? There's a million different ways. And I thought, we'd come back to some practical advice. This article is everything you need to know about dictionary attacks. I don't know if that's the right style article for the audience, right? I think we need to make sure that we focus and keep our teams focused on practical stuff. 2-factor authentication of some kind is what we should be striving for. Password vaults for users are a great way to reduce 100%. Your attack surface. For developers, the other 2 things for developers I came up with were secure password hash storage, making sure you've got a standardized way that is secure to store passwords, and making sure that password reset is secure. 2 things. Keep it simple. When I look at all of the breaches that we've had, and I listened to Darknet Diaries had a great kind of series on some recent breaches, I'm like, really what it came down to for developers, right? Secure that hash in storage and password reset. I mean, that was really kind of the theme when you listen to, he went through LinkedIn breach, through Trump's Twitter account, right? And that's those are really, we talk about basic hygiene, things to focus on.
Well, and I think the multi-factor authentication piece is huge, right? And it's not just making sure it's enabled; it's making sure that you have the right hygiene with it, right? I mean, we've done so many tests where we're testing an organization and someone just blindly accepts their MFA on their phone. Right. So it's teaching the user base that, hey, when you get that MFA prompt on your app on your phone, that's something serious, right? I mean, you just literally would have let a malactor into your account by blindly accepting or approving that MFA prompt.
We had pen testers, our hosts last week on Security Week, Paul Security Weekly, and they're like, yeah, I just keep sending that. I just keep sending it to the user until they're so annoyed that they just accept the 2-factor.
Absolutely.
And they just need one account and that's it.
I one of my favorite phishing campaigns that I've heard of people using is that they start sending you a newsletter that you didn't sign up for, and the unsubscribe link is the malicious link.
Oh,
jeez.
How evil is that?
That is evil.
That's awesome. Almost as evil as the $50 million ransomware demand. Oh, it was Acer, not ASUS. Sorry, it was Acer.
Yes.
So they think that the same gang has successfully weaponized the Exchange proxy logon vulnerabilities. So yeah, there's that. That was
Listen,
big.
hey, the malactors were actually, they had a little bit of a conscience and they said, listen, we'll give you a 20% discount if you pay us by the 17th of March.
Can you imagine that? It was like a $10 million discount.
Holy car salesman, Batman.
Wow.
If you buy by the 17th, you're getting
Act
a 20%
now and you can get the wax.
That's right. Free wheel and tire. that protection plan. If you drive in Rhode Island,
Free alignment for life.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Where we live, right, Paul?
Yeah, where we live. You need that. You need that. I negotiate that with all my new cars. With that, I want to thank everyone for listening and watching this edition of Business Security Weekly. We'll see you next time.